Welcome to Miles from Review, the podcast powered by KatFit Strength, where busy women like you find practical solutions to fuel your fitness journey with authenticity and resilience. I'm Kat, your host, a mom of 2 active boys, a business owner, and an ultramarathon runner, and a strength trainer in her 40s. With nearly 2 decades of experience, I'm here to help you cut through the noise of fads, hacks, and quick fixes. This is a space where we celebrate womanhood and motherhood, all while building strength and resilience and reconnecting with you from a place of self-compassion and worthiness. Whether you're lacing up your running shoes to go out for a run, driving your kids to practice, or squeezing in a moment for yourself, I'm right here in the trenches with you. Let's dive in. Welcome to Miles from Review. I'm Kat, your host, and I'm excited to be here with you. If you're new here, welcome. If you're a longtime listener, welcome. The last couple weeks have been featuring best of episodes. Well, there's a reason behind it. I've been traveling for the last 2 weeks with my family. I was grateful I was able to take the time off, step away from my business. I am back, and I am feeling energized and excited to dive back into all things client-related, podcast-related, all the things with my business and life. I want to share a little bit about my trip. It was a bit of an undertaking. Our life is very busy. My children are my eldest starting high school. I cannot believe it. And my youngest is in middle school. So they are embracing all things sports and music and socially just super busy. So our everyday life between 2 working parents and 2 very active kids, plus we have 2 very active dogs, it's jam-packed. So when we travel, we build in time to relax, and we love getting out and seeing the sights and exploring the world around us in which we are visiting. So this trip has been on my list and my husband's list for 15 years. 15 years ago, we went up to Bar Harbor in Acadia, and then we went over into Nova Scotia. And we fell in love with Nova Scotia. During that time, we said we hope to get back here and bring our kids in the future here and enjoy the trails and what we fell in love with in the Nova Scotia. When I plan trips, I love a good spreadsheet. This is something that I've always done, even when my husband and I were just us. We both enjoy a nice well-out plan. That does not mean every moment is scheduled. It's really just to organize what we want to see, and we research beforehand as to what is in the area. And then we also pivot when we speak to those who live in that area, or if we're visiting a national park or a state park. Reviews are great. Bloggers are great. I think they're all great resources. However, sometimes people who have quote unquote boots on the ground also offer very valuable advice that you can't find online before visiting somewhere. Or you get there and you see something that you didn't know was happening at the time and it deviates. So all that said, I had a very lengthy, multi-tabbed spreadsheet. We did 5 locations, 5 different Airbnbs, both of our kids and 2 dogs on the trip. Yes, we traveled with our dogs. I have 2 German short-hair pointers. And if you know anything about these dogs, they are high energy, lovable, incredible dogs who love nothing more but to be with their people, their family, be outdoors, see the world around them. So we decided to bring them. We have traveled with them in the past, nothing on this grandeur. So, okay, that was one layer of stress. So it also needed a good plan to make sure that we knew we could take the dogs on different hikes, restaurants, beaches, etc., that we could enjoy the activities and the sights around us that we wanted to see, and that our dogs were also welcome there too. Our first stop was in Bar Harbor, Acadia area. We enjoyed some lovely hikes there. We hiked some hikes that my husband and I went on that we fell in love with. We shared it with the kids. We then moved our way up into Canada and we went to Prince Edward Island. This island had been on our list for a very long time. We had never been there. We enjoyed so much about that island. Then we moved over to Cape Breton Island, which is in the Nova Scotia province, and fell in love with that island. We already stated, all four of us, maybe the dog stated this too, but we want to go back. We want to explore more. And this time we want to camp versus stay in an Airbnb. Then from there, we did a day trip, stopping at different points, Halifax and a couple points further south on the eastern side of Nova Scotia, and then drove over to the western side of Nova Scotia, where my husband and I camped there 15 years ago. We stayed in a lovely little cottage that was right on the ocean, and it's on the Bay of Fundy side of Nova Scotia. Now, the unique thing about Bay of Fundy, but if you've never been to Nova Scotia or heard about the Bay of Fundy, is the Bay of Fundy has, I forget the precise amount of gallons, but it is several million gallons. I should have looked that up, but it is some exorbitant amount of water that goes in and out of that Bay Area. It's the highest tidal region, I believe, in the world. So it is so cool to see how far out the water goes out, and you can see these incredible tidal pools when the water is at low tide and when it comes back in at high tide. Typically, high tide, the water comes in slowly. First day we came, the water was coming in pretty fast, so it's some pretty vigorous waves as it comes in. It is the coolest thing ever. My kids loved it. Where we were staying, they could walk out on the rocks and they could see the tidal pools. We even had to plan one of our days around being back at the cottage so that they could be there for high tide to see how high the water came up to the cottage. Now, the cottage was set further back, but there was, green space and then the rocky area, and they wanted to see how far the water came up and if it reached basically the green space. All that said, there were so many moving parts on this trip. 2 kids, 2 dogs, 2 adults, multiple locations, and activities every day. Plus the question of, what do we eat? What if the weather doesn't hold out? What if an attraction or a hike is just not what we think it would be? Well, we can't control everything, and we had to adjust a lot on this trip and find ways not just to make it work, but find ways to pivot, in knowing we were only in locations for a short amount of time to enjoy. The timeline doesn't stop. And you also are investing hard-earned dollars into a trip. So you don't want to feel like you traveled all these places and not taken advantage of it. So this trip really reminded me, general life, like there are so many things that we hope to control, but we can't control everything. So what we learned on that trip was that not everything is going to go as planned. Delays are going to happen. There's going to be the chaos of packing, figuring out meals, figuring out what to do when your original plan doesn't work out. And how this relates to fitness. And while I was gone, I will say this, I automate things in my business because I am one person and I do all of my podcast planning, editing, producing, social media, email marketing, newsletters, all of my client plans, all the coaching, one-on-one coaching time with my clients. When I go away, I don't want those things to stop. So I automate things. Thankfully, technology allows me to do this. So it's not a 2-week ghost time, or even during the school year that we're coming up, I will work ahead. I plan out my business just like I plan out my clients' programming. So while I was away, I shifted my newsletters in a way that I was like, ask me any question. I have a little unstructured time where I could just answer individuals who reply to the newsletter questions. I knew being on this trip, both my husband and I knew there were going to be times we were going to check in on our respective careers, my business, his career, his job, his responsibilities that he has. And we carved out time for that. We knew our kids were going to want downtime, the dogs were going to need downtime, etc. So all this to say is I got some really great questions during that time. The thing that came up a lot was, how much can you control with your fitness routine? We are at the dawn of a new school year. A lot of kids are heading off to college, starting their grade school years. Parents are feeling this pull in another transition season. The routine that they just got used to with summer is now changing again. And before we know it, the holidays are going to be upon us, and there's going to be a little bit of an unsettledness then. And then the winter season just feels long and drab, and then we're back into the spring season. So there tends to be a lot of transition in that time. And how do we keep that focus on our strength, cardio, mobility, and nutrition habits? So one of the top questions that came in was, how do I fit strength training into my schedule? The subscriber to the newsletter, a routine gets established, and then something upends it. So what do you do? This is common because the fact is, life is unpredictable. It's always going to be unpredictable. There are always going to be things you can't control. Those are the facts. So we have to look at what can we control. And my best advice for this individual, and when I do an ask me anything type thing, it's not a prescriptive offering. I'm not going to hand out plans, not because I want to gatekeep, but because when I work with clients, I do get to know, like, what is their schedule? When are they working out? I understand the stressors in their life. I understand when, and they communicate, hey, vacation is coming. Work trip is happening for either one of the working parent. So I get to know more intricate details, and I can help fine tune the plan so that they are staying focused. So it's not a gatekeeping thing. There are more aspects that I don't know about the person asking me the question. However, the advice is the same, not to each person, but what I'm going to share here, you can apply and to your own life and adapt it. Okay. The big thing with staying consistent with your fitness routine is the ability to adapt. Now, adapt does not mean that you can miss workouts constantly. What I mean when you adapt, so you start out doing 2 to 3 full body sessions a week of strength training. Their workouts are on compound movements, and they are short workouts between 30 to 40 minutes. Now, that is the baseline. More so of my clients, they start out with 1 to 2 workouts to integrate into there. Those workouts, maybe one might wind up being 30 minutes. The second one might be 10 minutes. And then they move into being able to incorporate that third full body strength session. The cardio, we're just trying to increase overall movement. Some clients come to me at a stage where they already have a fantastic walking routine. We build on that based on how their whole life can handle it. So my response to this individual was, we want to try to maintain 2 to 3 full body strength sessions per week in a time and a duration between 30 to 40 minutes. Now, 30 to 40 minutes is not the magic number. We want to be able to see compound movements. So push, pull, hinge, rotational movements in there. So I gave them a couple ideas of like squats, deadlifts, wood chops, to kind of help framework it out. And the thing that I stressed with the individual is it's showing up. It's not holding yourself to the parameter. If I don't have 30 minutes, if I don't have 40 minutes, therefore I cannot do the workout. It's okay. I'm going to show up. You're going to see that consistency more. Focusing on getting the reps in with showing up to the sessions of I'm going to show up one time every single week and not worrying that you don't have the 40 minutes, but showing up and doing 10 minutes of the workout. That is a win. That is showing up. It's adapting so that it is working with your life. Because what research shows us, when you are creating that behavioral change, when you are maintaining discipline in that, it's basically applying that discipline. It's not working on motivation. Motivation is crap. Like, don't wait for motivation. It's holding yourself to being disciplined. It's saying, I'm going to show up here one time or two times. If you're someone who can work in ranges, work in a range. If you are someone who is an all or nothing person, don't work in a range because you're never going to feel like you showed up. Start with one time. When you get consistent with that one time showing up, add on a second time. I argue, don't mess around with the duration. 30 to 40 minutes isn't the magic number. Research shows us, yes, 2 to 3 full body strength sessions per week does tend to be the sweet spot for most. Again, generalizations, there's always exceptions to the rule, but that tends to be the sweet spot for building strength, maintaining strength. And please, if you have questions on any of this, you can write the podcast. Hit reply in the notes or on the podcast. I think it's right in there. It just says message podcast. I will receive them. I will respond to them. If you want to jump on my newsletter, there is a link in the podcast notes. Jump on that. That is another way you can just hit reply to my newsletter and I do respond. Like I said, I do automate, but I am the person who's responding and I do respond to every person's email. The next one, cardio. The question came in, do I need to run 5 days a week to stay fit? My answer here is no, absolutely not. Now, with the caveat, if you are training for a race of some sort, depending on the distance, yeah, you may need to run 5 days a week. However, if you're a long-time listener to the podcast, you know I run ultramarathons. Ultramarathons is a distance over 26.2 miles. 26.2 miles is a marathon. Ultramarathoners, we need to do a lot of mileage because we are running 30, 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 miles plus. That is a lot of time on feet. And even myself, looking at this 2-week vacation, I didn't run 5 days a week. I didn't run 6 days a week. I ran, trying to think here, 4 times, maybe 5 times the entire 2 weeks. Does not mean it was like, oh, I can slack off, whatever. The schedule just didn't allow it. When there was a high travel day, there wasn't much moving. So when we think cardio can be walking, running, spinning, family activities. It is moving the body, swimming, dancing, etc. But I'm sure you hop on any sort of social media app and check out a fitness influencer or another trainer, and they might be like, zone 2 training, that's all you should do. Zone 2 training's bad. You should only be doing sprint intervals. You shouldn't be doing sprint intervals. Steady state is where it's at. Okay, it gets all confusing. You need it all. And as an avid runner who spends a lot of time running, and I do strength training and mobility and recovery and nutrition, but as someone who trains for long endurance races, my cardio training is a culmination of walking, hiking, running, spinning, and family activities. It is backed primarily with a run training program because I am training for a sport-specific event that only includes running. Now, ultramarathoning, full confession, yes, there are times you are hard hiking, you are, walking extremely purposeful because I'm not elite who is going to be running a full-on 100-miler. So that is also part of training your body to do that. For this individual, they were told running 5 days a week is how you stay fit. That is untrue. For most of my clients, walking is what they do. Now, and some do spinning. So they have a Peloton or another type of spin bike, or they go to a spin class and we incorporate that into their training plan. With walking, there are going to be some walks that are going to be relaxed, a stress-reducing walk, connect with others around you, whether you're walking with a friend, a partner, or chatting on the phone. And then there are some walks that are going to be more intentional. There is going to be a bit more of like a workout framework there. So it might be powering uphill. It might be picking up the pace for a certain amount of time so that we are getting that variation in intensity with that walk. It's the same thing that we would be doing if we were on a Peloton or a spin bike where you are picking up the pace and doing an interval workout. It's the same thing if we were doing an interval workout with running or in swimming where you are working on that variability so that we are creating cardio efficiency there. So all movement does count, yes, but we do want to make sure we have specified areas where it is focused on whether it be speed intervals, hill intervals. And speed does not mean all out sprinting or an all out like super, super fast like walk, but we want to make sure that we are getting that heart rate spike up at least 1 to 2 times per week. Now, the next question that I got pertains to mobility and recovery. This is something that I feel a lot of people can relate to. And it says, I sit all day. And at the end of the day, I feel really stiff. Or halfway through the day, I get up and I feel stiff moving around. How can I feel better? How can I reduce the stiffness? Well, this is common when the body's at rest. Yes, our body does stiffen up as we progress through the decades of life. Our ligaments and tendons become stiffer, more rigid. They lose that pliability in them. And this is where mobility comes in. Where with mobility, we can Are you curious about KatFit Strength? Well, KatFit Strength is designed to help you achieve your fitness goals with confidence and clarity. Whether you're a busy mom juggling multiple responsibilities, a woman navigating unique challenges of prenatal, postpartum, or perimenopause, or an athlete looking to enhance your performance, KatFit Strength has you covered. Let's get down to it. KatFit Strength offers personalized programs tailored to your unique needs, goals, and ensuring you get the most out of every workout. Expert guidance provided for you with the understanding of the importance of balancing strength training, cardio, and mobility. Flexible workouts designed to fit into your busy schedule, whether you're at home or at the gym or on the go. So why choose KatFit Strength? I believe in creating sustainable fitness habits that adapt to your lifestyle. I focus on helping you lift effectively, move better, and feel stronger every day. Plus, emphasis is on realistic goal setting, celebrating every win, and helping you stay motivated and inspired. With mobility, we can help the joints stay more lubricated. We prime those tendons and ligaments. We allow for the movement to be in there. This helps reduce that achiness, that stiffness that we tend to feel either getting up in the morning or if it's after a long period of sitting. Think about like a long car ride. I did plenty of that on my vacation where there was just, it might have been like a 2.5, 3 hour bout in the car, and you get up and you feel a bit stiff. When you're on a road trip, there's some standing mobility you can do. But in this case, if you are someone who has a job in which you are sitting a lot during the day, there's a couple things to mitigate it just within the constraints of your day. So the first thing is, if you have a sit to stand desk, to be able to stand at some points when you're working and then sit at some points when you're working. This changes up how the body is positioned throughout the day. And this kind of goes back to cardio. If you have the ability to put a walking pad underneath your desk, if you have a sit to stand desk, so when you're standing, maybe get some easy walking into it. I would really encourage with that head that if we can prop up the laptop or the desktop screen, so we're not burying our chest down and our head is looking down at the screen, and that it's more ergonomic so that we are looking a little bit more straight on while we are doing our work. I do understand that may not be practical, but if you do have a stand desk and a walking pad that you want to incorporate in for some more movement, be mindful that our head craned down in that position can create contention in the neck. And we just need to add some mobility there so that we don't have a cranky neck with that positioning. Mobility is really great in the morning if your morning can accommodate that. It's not the end all be all. Mobility is also great in the evening if you have the ability to do it one or the other, or some days on both when you know you have more stiffness in the body. Fantastic, do that. On my YouTube channel, there's a link in the show notes. There are some mobility routines on there that you can use. So I do recommend 2 to 3 mobility sessions per week. It doesn't have to be a long session. It can be 10 minutes. It can be 5 minutes. And you can do it around your kids. In fact, one of the things as we head into the school year, I tend to do mobility, not all the time, but one of the pockets of time in a busy evening schedule that I find helps me not only address what I need after a long day training clients, or there are days where I am desk bound and I feel the aches and the stiffness in my body, is when my kids are doing homework and when they have questions. They're sitting at the kitchen table, I'm in the family room, and I'm able to do some mobility stretches. This is where it does play a piece in the whole strength training cardio picture as well. It all complements each other. Now, I didn't get so many questions about recovery, and recovery is a big thing. And I've talked several podcasts on how to get rest and recovery. But the one thing I will just say here in mobility plays into this is doing a mobility routine at night can really help set your body up for rest. It can help clear the mind. You can incorporate some breathing, some box breathing with it. It can help just decompress at the end of the day and allow for you to get in a better state of mind to prepare yourself for sleep. Nutrition. One of the questions that I got in here, and I really do feel it is fantastic for this time of year, is how do I eat well with kids' schedules and life chaos? That question comes up time and time again. So there's a lot of tips out there, and the way I view nutrition, and we're going to kind of start as broad range and bring it into answering this question, is let's start with this. There are no bad foods out there, ever. The foods that we want to, and if you've heard the 80-20 rule, the foods that we want to consume 80% of the time and is the more nutrient dense foods. Those foods are fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grain. They're not listed in any hierarchy order. Those are the 80% area. The 20% are the less nutrient dense, the ones that tend to be lower on the nutrient scale. So I'm going to throw this out. They tend to be more, quote unquote, old term, but a perfectly normal term, junk food. Okay. Is junk food bad? No. There are no bad foods out there. There are no foods that you need to restrict completely, with the exception, and these are my rules here, and a lot of my good friends who are registered dietitians do agree with this as well, is the foods you really want to avoid are the ones that are expired, spoiled, moldy. Those are the ones we don't want in our diet. Number two, you want to avoid foods you just don't like. For me, and this is a whole food, it doesn't matter if it's a whole food, I don't like chickpeas. However, the exception there for me is I do enjoy hummus. I will eat hummus, but I don't like roasted chickpeas. And then number three, foods that you have an allergy or a sensitivity to, you don't need to eat them. Like, especially, please don't eat food you're allergic to. And then the fourth one is religious reasons you're abstaining from certain food groups. Those are the only foods you need to avoid. The other foods, they all serve a purpose. If we're focusing on that, and I do recommend focus that bulk of your food is at 80% whole food or whole nutrient dense food, and the 20% is filled in with the less nutrient dense kind of junk food. Does not mean you have to have that 20% every single day, but if we look in a 7-day period, that 80% of your food that you are eating and your family is eating should be in that whole food nutrient dense category. And then 20% in that, the term we grew up, junk food category. We want to focus on simple meal prep. When we think, or when I mention meal prep to clients, oftentimes it's met with the thought process of, I need to cook every single meal, have it measured out and put into Tupperware containers or a mason jar. These were ideologies that are probably still out there, and maybe some people practice. And if that works for you and you have the time to do that, fantastic. Stick with it. Find a system that works for you. So I'm not here to bash that system, but that is a system that was mainstream when a lot of my clients were going through their teens and their 20s and maybe even early 30s. So it became the gold standard of meal prep. However, that is not the only way to meal prep. When you have a chaotic life, when you're in the thick of the kids' activities and a 2-parent working household, we want to simplify. We want to create a simple system that is repeatable, that we are getting the 80% whole food. And yes, I'm going to keep saying the 20% of non-nutrient dense foods can be in there. They don't have to be, but I do find allowing some of it does help, and it teaches trust and responsibility with those less nutrient dense foods. Tend to be more hyperpalatable, meaning you crave them more, you consume more in one sitting. So with simple meal prep, things I focus on with that is create themed days. So in my household, Sundays, I tend to batch cook double the dinner, because Mondays tend to be our crazier day all around. From just the start of the week to the activities, etc. Mondays tend to be our day where there's not a lot of time in the evening to cook meals. So I and my family is okay with eating the same thing that they ate the night before. So I batch cook that meal. If your family's not okay with eating the same thing that they ate before, the same, like having the same dinners 2 nights in a row, but batch cooking works for you, save it for a Tuesday or whatnot, or a non-consecutive day to have that meal. Tuesdays are always Taco Tuesday. Does not mean we have the same style tacos. There's many variations in tacos. There's many different ways to get a lot of nutrient-dense food in tacos. Wednesday tends to be more of a traditional dinner where there's a lean protein, 2 vegetables, and a whole grain. Thursdays, my husband cooks. He cooks the same thing every single week. That's his deal. And then Fridays are Pizza Friday. And then Saturdays, I tend to have a little bit more fun cooking because we tend to have more time on those days. And then, like I said, we're right back into Sunday. So with those meals, I know what my family likes. We buy pretty much the same things every week. Sometimes I spice it up with a little bit different. And that takes the guesswork out of what's for dinner. Now, when you are dealing with, and I'm in the same struggle too, where you have practices that go till 5, and then another child who might have practice starting at 5. And then what's that meme that tends to float around that it's like we're either eating at 4 p.m. or 10 p.m. So what do you do there? There's a couple ways you can split this. And the one we have these days where divide and conquer, just eating in the car, what I focus on then is I look at what the meal would be. Either I do have the flexibility, I work from home, I do control my schedule, where I will either cook the dinner earlier and package it up so that whatever kid is splitting a meal, and maybe it's all of us, we all have that there. And then the child and adults or whoever is in that weird area where maybe their practice is during the traditional dinner time hours, 5 to 7 p.m.-ish, they can eat a little bit before, and then they can eat after practice. So it's right there with them. Another way you can do that is having nutrient-dense snacks so that they're getting that good food in their body to help push them through the practice so they're not running on empty. How I do that and some of our staples with the snacks are, and these are the shortcuts. Like I love the Kodiak brand, and I get their Kodiak mix from Costco. I think it's I forget what the actual title is, but I think their pancake mix. And I use the recipe on the back for their protein muffin. It's fantastic. It takes like 15 minutes or less. I've gotten it down pat. I pretty much have the recipe memorized. I throw it all in one bowl on Sunday night, and then I will throw in frozen fruits in it. You don't even have to thaw out the fruits. That's how crazy it is. It's like just throw in cherries or throw in blueberries or throw in a mix of blueberries and cherries. I will make 24 of them. I use the silicone cupcake wrappers or muffin wrappers, whatever you want to call them. I put them right in, easy cleanup, and I just drop them in and I cook them alongside of the dinner that we are having on Sunday night. They're right there. Kids can grab them. It's got protein in it. It's got some fruit in it. And then I'll also have them pair it with, a vegetable or another fruit. Snack idea is I made like power balls, and I use my food processor and I'm throwing in cashews and dates, the little cocoa powder for like giving it that rich chocolatey taste. But there's essentially the sugar, the sweetener is from the dates and a little mint in it. And it is so yummy. The kids love it. There's a couple other ingredients that go in there, but I roll them all up and they absolutely love them. So they're getting a little bit more nutrient dense snack in there. Meal prep, look at your whole week. Plan for your busiest day. Understand that maybe a batch cooking will have to happen. And when you're incorporating these recipes in, I strongly encourage don't try any new recipes during the week. Reserve that and for me, it typically is a Saturday where there's more time, and I will try and see if this is a crowd pleaser. It does take a little bit of trial and error to put together a themed meal system, especially around dinner, but really look at like, what are the things your family likes to eat? What are things you can cook quickly and then build around that? Now, in the event that you need to go out to eat, it is not the worst thing in the world, okay? There may be a time, and maybe you're sitting there being like, well, Tuesdays and Thursdays, there is absolutely no way that I can batch cook, meal prep for those days. It's just not humanly possible. Fantastic. Here's what we can do. Those Tuesdays and Thursdays, those takeout meals, that is part of your meal prep, your meal plan. What this then will look like, whatever restaurant you are going to, or maybe in Southeast Pennsylvania where I'm located, Wawas are big. If you're going to a Wawa, or we also have Wegmans here where they have a lot of grab and go options for meals. If you are going through a store, a mini mart, a drive-through, this is where we do the 80-20 rule. And if you're like, well, McDonald's is only a 20. Okay, Well, that's where we look at the whole week. We want 80% of your food to be nutrient dense food throughout that 7-day period, 21 meal week. And then 20% of that can be or has the option of being a little less non-nutrient dense foods. And so that would be 2 meals. And with that, really tune into your hunger. How hungry are you? Maybe not supersize it. Maybe, swap out with a salad and have a burger and salad, or look at it and be like, I'm going to eat the burgers and fries because, when I go to McDonald's, I tend to just get cheeseburger, and I guess now the smallest size they have is medium. I never finish my fries because I'm like, the cheeseburger fills me up and I'll have some fries. Look at it as that is part of your meal plan. Maybe it's in our area, there's a fantastic business, women-owned business, who does meal prep and has meals that you can pop in the freezer. Maybe it's looking into something like that. Again, I do understand budgetary constraints. I respect that, but there are ways to get that nutrient-dense foods in there that are grab and go. Some may require a little bit of prep, but the other alternative is being frustrated that all you're doing is spending time in a drive-through window and feeling miserable because you don't have the food that sets you up for success. That's what I would say there. I encourage you, if you have questions about any of this, if you're like, hey, wait, can you explain this more? Message the podcast. The other thing is get on my email newsletter. I don't have time to spam. I have told you I am a one-woman show. I've got a lot going on. That does not mean I will not reply and that you should not message me. You can absolutely message me, but in regards to my email, I'm not going to spam your inbox. Personally, I can't stand spam, so don't worry, I will not spam you. So hop on that newsletter. The link is in the show notes. It is inevitable. Life is going to throw you curveballs. It just is what it is. That's part of life. And in order to prioritize your health, it's becoming adaptable and flexible with keeping the principles, the basics, make sure we are strength training, we're moving our body, we're having that mobility there, and that we are eating, for the most of the time, nutrient-dense foods. I didn't get into water. There are some more aspects to it, the sleep and that, but not to overcomplicate it. You don't need crazy intense systems. You can do workouts in a short amount of time. We can find ways to move our body in and around our day, as well as getting that mobility in there to ease some of that stiffness, the achiness that builds up in our body, and clear our mind to reduce that stress. While you're going through this, self-compassion is huge. It's understanding that just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's when the shouldas, the couldas, the wouldas, if I only am putting yourself where you're comparing yourself to the ultimate goal or to somebody else's reality or a social media influencer out there whose only job is to put up these complex things because they're trying to sell you something or some highly complex routine. No, that's not your life. You have to find out the system that works for you. You have to find out the processes that work for you. And this is something that I focus on with my clients. I really try to focus on finding a plan, a workout routine, as well as we talk about the nutrition, we talk about the mobility, the cardio training. All of these things go into their plan in their coaching so that it works for them, so that they start putting in the skills to be flexible, to be adaptable, but they stay disciplined without the guilt and shame or the all or nothing approach, because they understand what they can control, what they can't control, and they are in control of their health. And I'm helping them guide them and helping them troubleshoot. So planning does matter. Planning helps you keep what is a priority for you to help you thrive at the forefront. And it's backed with adaptability, and that is where success is. I'm going to mention it again. If you want more tips, strategies, and just realistic approaches for building strength, staying active, and eating well, especially as life gets busy, sign up for my newsletter. I share advice that you can use immediately, things that I help train my clients on, and you'll also get to hear more. Honestly, I love social media. I'm on it, but if you follow me on social media, I genuinely appreciate that follow. But as we know, it's a loud area. Email, I pop up in your inbox Tuesday at 11 a.m. every week, and you get it delivered right to you. Also, follow this podcast. This is another way that I can get directly to you. And if you've loved anything on this podcast, or you found this episode or another episode very helpful, forward it to a friend, because chances are they might find something that is beneficial for them. All right. So before I depart, I hope you are having a wonderful rest of your summer. And if your kids are already back to school, I do hope this transition back to school is going smoothly. Like I said, message the podcast if you have any questions about this episode. And I look forward to having you back here next Friday at 6 a.m. Thank you for tuning in to Miles from Review, powered by KatFit Strength. If this podcast inspires you, don't keep it for yourself. Hit follow or subscribe to stay updated on the new episodes, and leave us a review to help more women and moms discover this space. Your feedback fuels this podcast, and I'd love to hear what's working for you or what topics you want to dive into next. You can connect with me on Instagram at KatFit Strength, or share this episode with a friend who is ready to embrace her strength. Remember, fitness isn't about perfection. It's about showing up for yourself and finding strength in every step of your journey. Until next time, keep moving forward, 1 mile at a time.